There are people who carry an invisible weight, one that no achievement can lift, no praise can dissolve. They cross finish lines and feel nothing. They are loved, yet doubt it. They succeed, and still search for proof that they matter. It isn't ingratitude. It isn't ambition. It's something quieter, older feeling that lives beneath the skin, whispering the same question in 1,000 different moments. Am I enough? And no matter how many times the world answers yes, something inside them says, not yet. This is not about wanting more. It's about never feeling like you've arrived. It's the psychology of those who are always reaching, always rebuilding, always running from a void they cannot name. They stood at the finish line and felt nothing, not relief, not pride, not even exhaustion that comes with completion. Just a strange, quiet emptiness, like opening a gift and finding it lighter than expected. The applause was real, the achievement was real, but inside, there was only the hum of a question already forming. What's next? This is the paradox of people who never feel enough. They reach the mountaintop and discover it wasn't the mountaintop at all. It was just another hill, and beyond it, more hills. Always more. The horizon never arrives. They are the ones who graduate with honors and feel like frauds, who get promoted and panic, who are told I love you and search the words for hidden conditions. They are accomplished, capable, often admired, and yet, somewhere deep inside, they are still waiting for permission to feel worthy. It looks like ambition from the outside, drive, discipline, but from the inside, it feels like survival, because the goal was never really the goal. The degree, the job, the relationship, the body, the recognition, they were all just vehicles for a single desperate hope, that this would be the thing that finally makes them feel like they matter, that this would silence the voice that says they are not enough. But it never does. The promotion comes, and within days, the anxiety returns. What if I can't keep up? What if they realize I'm not qualified? The compliment lands, and the mind immediately discounts it. They're just being nice. They don't really mean it. The love is given freely, and still, it is questioned. What happens when they see who I really am? This is not about perfectionism, though it can look like it. Perfectionists believe that flawless execution will bring satisfaction. People who never feel enough don't believe satisfaction is even possible. They are not chasing excellence, they are running from a feeling that has no name, no clear origin, but has lived inside them for so long it has become the lens through which they see everything. And so they keep moving, keep achieving, keep trying to fill a void that has no bottom. They become experts at performing, at showing up, at delivering results. They are the reliable ones, the dependable ones, the ones who never say no. Because to stop to rest would mean facing the question they have spent their whole lives avoiding. If I am not producing, if I am not useful, if I am not earning my place, then who am I? The world rewards them for this. Society celebrates their output. Friends admire their strength. They are told they are so driven, so talented, so strong, and they smile, because that is what is expected. But inside, they are tired. So deeply tired, tired of the race, tired of the measuring, tired of waking up every day and having to prove, once again, that they deserve to take up space. And yet, they cannot stop, because the alternative, believing they are enough as they are, without the achievements, without the validation, without the proof, feels impossible. It feels like standing on the edge of a cliff and being asked to trust that the ground will hold them, and they have never trusted the ground. The ground has always felt conditional, so they keep building, keep striving, keep waiting for the moment when everything clicks into place and they finally feel whole. But that moment never comes. Not because they aren't doing enough, but because the emptiness they are trying to fill was never meant to be filled by external things. It was carved out long ago, in moments they may not even fully remember, moments when love felt earned, when attention had to be won, when their worth was weighed and measured and found wanting. And now, no matter how much they achieve, that early lesson remains, buried, unspoken, but alive. That is the hollow victory, the success that doesn't heal, the applause that doesn't land, the love that doesn't stick. It is the life of someone who is always arriving and never arriving at all. It didn't start with a single moment. It started with 1,000 small ones. A parent who praised the A+, but said nothing about the child who earned it. A home where love was warm when things were good, and cold when they weren't. A sibling who seemed to do everything right, while they seemed to do everything almost. A teacher who smiled at other students and looked past them. A friend group where belonging felt like a test they were always on the verge of failing. These were not disasters. They were not traumas in the way we often define them. There was no catastrophic event to point to, no clear villain, no obvious wound. And that is precisely why it runs so deep. Because the child learned something without ever being told directly. Your value is not inherent. It is contingent. It must be earned again and again, or it will be taken away. Perhaps it was the parent who only showed affection after achievements. The one who hugged them when they won, but turned distant when they struggled. The child's brain made a connection. Love comes when I succeed. When I fail, I am alone. And so they learn to perform, to achieve, to become useful, impressive, undeniable so that love would stay. Or perhaps it was subtler than that. A household where no one was cruel, but no one was seen, where emotions were inconvenient, where needs were dismissed as dramatics, where the child learned that to ask for attention was to be a burden. And so they stopped asking. They became small. They became easy. They became the child who didn't need anything because needing felt like proof of weakness. Or maybe it was comparison. The sibling who was smarter, prettier, more charming, the constant measuring, the sense that they were always second place in a race they didn't know they'd entered. They were loved, yes, but conditionally. In relation to, they were the responsible one because their sibling was the fun one. They were the quiet one because someone else was louder. Their identity was never theirs. It was always shaped by what they were not. And so the belief took root. I am not enough as I am. I must become more. I must prove I deserve to be here. Children don't question these lessons. They absorb them. They internalize them as truth. Because when you are young, the people around you are not just people, they are the world. And if the world treats your worth as conditional, you believe it is. The child doesn't think, my parents are struggling with their own wounds, and it's affecting how they show love. The child thinks I am not lovable. The child doesn't think, this environment is emotionally neglectful. The child thinks, I am too much, or not enough, or wrong somehow. And that belief doesn't stay in childhood. It follows them into classrooms where they work twice as hard as everyone else and still feel like an imposter. Into friendships where they overgive, afraid that if they stop being useful, they will be abandoned. Into relationships where they cannot accept love without suspicion, because love has always felt like something they had to earn, and what is earned can be lost. They grow up, they move out, they build lives, but the early lesson remains, encoded in their nervous system, whispering beneath every success and every failure. You are not enough. You have never been enough. You must keep proving, or you will be left behind. And the cruelest part, they often don't remember where it started. There was no single day they can point to and say, that's when it began. It was just the air they breathed, the water they swam in, the quiet, constant message that worth was something outside of them, something to be demonstrated, not something they already possessed, so they spent their lives chasing it, chasing the grades that would make them worthy, the career that would make them matter, the body that would make them acceptable, the relationship that would prove they were lovable. They became high achievers, overachievers, perfectionists, people pleasers, whatever shape the wound demanded. And no one saw it as a wound, not even them, because they were successful. They were capable. They were strong. How could someone so accomplished be struggling? How could someone so loved feel so alone? But the truth is, the wound and the achievement are not opposites. They are partners. The wound is what drives the achievement. The fear of not being enough is what fuels the endless doing, the constant striving, the refusal to rest. And until the wound is seen, really seen, the doing will never stop, because you cannot achieve your way out of a belief that was formed before you even knew what achievement was. You cannot earn your way into a sense of worth that was supposed to be given freely, without condition. From the very beginning, the child needed to hear, you are enough, just as you are. You do not need to perform. You do not need to be perfect. You are loved because you exist, not because of what you do. But the child didn't hear that. And so the adult still doesn't believe it. And so the cycle continues. There is a reason why knowing you are enough is not the same as feeling it. Because this is not a problem of logic. It is a problem of wiring. The brain of someone who never feels enough has learned a specific pattern. One that was carved into the neural pathways long before they had the language to question it. And once that pattern is laid down, it doesn't disappear just because life changes. It becomes the filter through which everything is interpreted. Success is minimized. Failure is amplified. Love is questioned. Rest feels dangerous. This is not weakness. This is neuroscience. At the center of this experience is something psychologists call conditional self-worth, the belief that your value is dependent on meeting certain standards. And when self-worth is conditional, the brain is never at ease. It is always scanning, always measuring, always asking, am I meeting the standard? Am I still acceptable? Am I about to be found out? This creates a state of chronic hypervigilance. The nervous system is stuck in a low-grade fight or flight response, not because there is immediate danger, but because the sense of worth, the psychological ground beneath their feet, feels unstable. And when your worth feels unstable, everything feels like a threat. A colleague's silence becomes evidence of disapproval. A partner's distraction becomes proof of waning love. A mistake at work becomes confirmation of the fear they've carried all along. I'm not good enough. I never was. The brain is not being irrational. It is being loyal to an old lesson. Neuroscientists have found that early. Relational experiences, particularly with caregivers, shape the brain's reward and threat detection systems. When a child receives consistent, unconditional love, their brain learns that safety and worth are stable. The ventral vagal system, responsible for social connection and calm, becomes their baseline. They grow up with a quiet, internal sense that they are okay, that they belong. But love is not something they have to chase. But when love is inconsistent, conditional, or withheld, the brain adapts differently. It becomes wired to seek external validation as a way to regulate internal safety. The dopamine system, the brain's reward center, starts to associate relief not with being, but with doing, not with presence, but with performance. And here's the trap. Dopamine is released in anticipation of reward, not in its arrival. It's the chase that lights up the brain, not the catch. So the person achieves the goal, gets the promotion, receives the compliment, and the dopamine drops. The relief is brief. The emptiness returns, and the brain says, okay, what's next? This is why they can't rest. Rest feels like regression, like falling behind, like giving the void permission to catch up. They are not addicted to success. They are addicted to the temporary relief that success provides from the feeling of not being enough. But because the relief is always temporary, the striving becomes endless. Psychologically, this is often linked to what's known as insecure attachment, specifically anxious or disorganized attachment styles. These develop when a child's caregivers are unpredictable, emotionally unavailable, or inconsistent. The child learns that closeness is not safe or reliable, so they develop strategies to cope. They become hyper-tuned to others' emotions. They overperform to secure connection. They suppress their own needs to avoid rejection. As adults, this shows up as a constant need for reassurance, a fear of being too much or not enough, a belief that love must be earned, maintained, defended. They are in relationships, but never fully relaxed in them. They are loved, but cannot let the love land, because their nervous system has learned that connection is conditional and conditions can change at any moment. Then there is the role of the inner critic, the voice that is always watching, always judging. Neurologically, this is the brain's prefrontal cortex trying to protect them by predicting failure before it happens. If I criticize myself first, the world's criticism won't hurt as much. If I expect the worst, I won't be caught off guard. But the inner critic is not a protector. It is a bully with good intentions, and over time, its voice becomes so loud, so constant, that it drowns out everything else. Compliments are dismissed. Achievements are downplayed. Self-compassion feels impossible, even dangerous, because if they are kind to themselves, they might stop trying, and if they stop trying, they will fail, and if they fail, they will be abandoned. This is the logic of a nervous system that was never taught safety, and it doesn't matter how much external evidence contradicts it. The brain is not interested in evidence. It is interested in survival, and survival, for them, has always meant staying one step ahead of worthlessness. So the cycle continues. Achieve, feel empty, achieve again, seek validation, receive it, doubt it, be loved, feel anxious, search for proof. The external life looks successful. The internal life is exhausting. That in the cruel irony is that the very strategies they develop to cope, the overachieving, the people-pleasing, the hyper-responsibility, are the ones keeping the wound alive. Because as long as they are performing, they never have to face the question beneath it all. What if I stopped trying to earn my worth? Would I still matter? Would I still be loved? The brain, wired in childhood, says no, and so they keep running. But the brain can learn new patterns. Neural pathways are not permanent. They are malleable. Neuroplasticity means that what was wired in fear can be rewired in safety. Slowly, imperfectly, but truly. The healing is not about thinking differently. It is about feeling differently, and that requires something the brain has long resisted: rest, stillness, the terrifying practice of existing without proving anything at all. There are two voices inside them, and they are always at war. One voice says, "You are exhausted. You have done enough. You can rest now." The other voice says, "Not yet. Not until you've proven yourself. Not until it's safe." And the second voice always wins. Because resting feels like giving up. Slowing down feels like falling behind. And falling behind feels like disappearing entirely, so they keep going. They push through the fatigue. They ignore the body when it whispers for gentleness. They say yes when they mean no. They work late, wake early, skip meals, cancel plans, override their limits because limits feel like weakness, and weakness feels like proof that they were never enough to begin with. This is the internal war, not between laziness and ambition, but between the part of them that knows they are running on empty and the part that believes stopping will destroy them, and it is unbearable, because they can see the trap. They know, intellectually, that this pace is unsustainable. They know they are burning out. They know that their worth should not be tied to their productivity. They have read the articles. They have heard the advice. They understand the concept of self-compassion. But understanding does not mean believing. And believing does not mean feeling thus, so they are caught in the split. The mind that knows better and the body that cannot let go. Psychologists call this cognitive dissonance. But it feels much heavier than that. It feels like living two lives at once. The life they show the world, the capable, composed, successful one, and the life they live inside, where every achievement is shadowed by the fear that it will never be enough, that they will never be enough. This is where self-sabotage begins, not because they want to fail, but because success has become so tightly bound to anxiety that the brain starts to associate achievement with danger. Every promotion brings more responsibility, more visibility, more chances to be exposed as the fraud they secretly believe they are. Every compliment brings the terror of expectations they are certain they cannot meet. Every moment of visibility brings the fear of being seen, really seen, and found lacking. And so, unconsciously, they begin to undermine themselves. They procrastinate on the project that matters most. They pick fights in the relationship that feels too good to be true. They push away the people who love them, not because they don't want love, but because love without conditions feels foreign, unsafe, impossible to trust. They create distance before distance can be created for them. That is not self-destruction. It is self-protection. Because if they fail on their own terms, at least they are in control. If they leave first, they cannot be left. If they prove themselves unworthy before anyone else does, at least they won't be blindsided by rejection. This is the logic of someone who has spent their entire life bracing for impact, and the exhaustion is not just physical. It is emotional, existential. It is the exhaustion of never being able to trust goodness, of always waiting for the other shoe to drop, of holding their breath in every relationship, every accomplishment, every moment of peace, waiting for the moment when it all gets taken away, because it always has been, hasn't it? Not literally, but emotionally. The love that came with conditions, the praise that disappeared when they stumbled, the belonging that required constant performance. They learned early that nothing good is permanent, and so now, even when good things come, they cannot relax into them. They are the ones who achieve their dreams and feel nothing but dread, who get the relationship they wanted and immediately start scanning for red flags, who receive kindness and spend hours analyzing it for hidden motives. They are perpetually preparing for loss, for disappointment, for the inevitable confirmation that they were right all along. They are not enough, and they never will be, and the people around them don't understand. How can someone so accomplished feel so broken? How can someone so loved feel so alone? How can someone who has everything still feel like they have nothing? But that's the thing. The war is not about what they have. It is about what they believe they are. And what they believe, deep in the marrow of their being, is that their existence is conditional, that they are tolerated, not cherished, that they are valued for what they provide, not for who they are. But the moment they stop being useful, impressive, perfect, they will be discarded. And so they cannot stop, even when their body is screaming, even when their mind is fracturing, even when every cell is begging for rest, because rest would mean facing the thing they have been running from their entire life, the fear that if they are not constantly proving themselves, they are nothing. This is the war within, and it is relentless. They are tired of fighting, but they are more afraid of surrender, because surrender feels like annihilation, like admitting that they were never enough, like giving the void permission to swallow them whole. So they stay in the war, pushing, striving, performing, hating themselves for not being able to stop, hating themselves for needing to stop, hating themselves for being unable to simply be, without the armor, without the achievements, without the proof. And somewhere, beneath the noise, beneath the panic, beneath the endless doing, there is a quiet, exhausted part of them that just wants to lay down the weapons, that wants to stop fighting for worth and just exist, but they don't know how, because fighting is all they've ever known. And the thought of disarming, of standing still, vulnerable, empty-handed feels like the most dangerous thing they could ever do. So the war continues, and they are so tired. It doesn't come as a revelation, it comes as a collapse. Not dramatic, not cinematic, just a quiet, bone-deep exhaustion that finally becomes louder than the fear. Maybe it's the morning they wake up and realize they can't remember the last time they felt anything other than tired. Maybe it's the panic attack in the bathroom at work, the one they can't explain away or push through. Maybe it's the promotion they worked years for, and the emptiness that follows feels so vast, so consuming, that they finally understand nothing they achieve will ever fill this. Or maybe it's softer than that. A moment of unexpected kindness. Someone who loves them without asking for anything in return. A friend who says, "You don't have to earn this. I'm not going anywhere." And for the first time, they don't have a rebuttal. They don't have a reason to disbelieve. They just sit with it, and it terrifies them. Because if love doesn't have to be earned, if worth is not something outside of them, something to be achieved, then who are they? What has all of this been for? This is the turning point. Not the healing, not the answer, just the crack in the armor. The moment when the system that has kept them running finally breaks down, and in the rubble, there is space for a different question. Not what do I need to do to be enough, but what if I already am? It's not a thought they choose. It's a whisper that slips through the exhaustion, and at first, they reject it, because it feels like giving up, like admitting defeat, like all the years of striving were for nothing. But slowly, in the quiet that follows the collapse, another possibility begins to emerge. What if the striving was never about becoming enough? What if it was about running from the belief that they weren't? And what if they stopped running? Not forever, not perfectly, just for a moment, just long enough to see what happens when they lay down the weight. This is terrifying, because the weight has been their identity. The achieving, the performing, the proving, so proving it's how they've known themselves. It's how they've survived. And to release it feels like stepping off a cliff with no promise of ground beneath them. But they are so tired. And tired sometimes is what finally gives permission. So they try something small, something that feels insignificant, but is actually monumental. They say no to something they don't want to do, not with an excuse, not with an apology, just no. They let the compliment sit, without deflecting. They don't analyze it, they don't search for the lie, they just let it land, and it feels strange, uncomfortable, but not dangerous. They spend an afternoon doing nothing, not productively resting, not self-care as another task to optimize, just being, and the guilt comes, of course. The voice that says they're wasting time, falling behind, being lazy. But beneath the guilt, there is something else, something quieter, relief. These are not solutions, they are experiments, small tests to see if the belief that has ruled their life is actually true. The belief that if they stop proving, they will be abandoned, that if they stop performing, they will be worthless. That if they stop running, the void will catch them. And slowly, painfully, they begin to see, the void was never chasing them. It was inside them, and it was never about what they did or didn't do. It was about the story they were told long ago, before they had words for it, that they were not enough as they were. This is the shift, not a cure, not an arrival, just the beginning of a different kind of seeing. They start to notice the voice, the inner critic that has narrated their entire life, the one that says not good enough, not smart enough, not lovable enough. And for the first time, they recognize it not as truth, but as an old recording, a voice from the past, still playing, still trying to protect them the only way it knows how, by keeping them small, vigilant, armored. But they don't need that protection anymore. Or maybe they do. Maybe the wound is still there. Maybe it will always be there. But now at least, they can see it. And seeing it means they are no longer fused with it. They are not the wound, they are the person carrying it. And that distinction changes everything. Because if they are not the wound, then healing is possible. Not as a destination, but as a practice. A slow, imperfect, ongoing practice of choosing differently, of choosing rest over productivity, just once, of choosing self-compassion over self-criticism, even when it feels unnatural, of choosing to believe the people who love them, not because they have proof, but because trust is a practice, not a feeling. They don't wake up one day and suddenly feel enough. That's not how this works. But they begin to notice moments, brief, fleeting moments where the question doesn't arise, where they exist without measuring, where they are simply present, without the weight of proof. And those moments are small, so small. But they are real. They are the first cracks of light in a lifetime of darkness. And light, no matter how faint, changes everything. This is the turning point. Not the end of the war, but the first ceasefire. The first moment where they stop fighting themselves long enough to ask, what if I am not the enemy? What if I never was? And in that question, something ancient and exhausted finally begins to soften. They don't have the answer yet, but for the first time, they are willing to stop running long enough to look for it. And that fragile, trembling willingness is where everything begins to change. Healing is not a revelation. It is a practice, and it is harder than anything they have ever done, because achieving was familiar, pushing was familiar, running was familiar, but this sitting with themselves, without the armor, without the accomplishments, without the constant doing this is foreign territory, and it feels unbearable at first. Self-compassion feels like lying. They try to speak kindly to themselves, the way they would to a friend, and it feels absurd, fake like putting a band-aid on a bullet wound, because the voice inside them has been so loud, so relentless, for so long, that gentleness sounds like weakness. It sounds like giving up. It sounds like permission to fail, but they try anyway. Not because it feels good, but because everything else has failed. They begin, tentatively, to notice when the inner critic speaks, and instead of obeying it immediately, they pause. They ask, is this true, or is this the old voice? And most of the time, it is the old voice, the one that learned, decades ago, that safety meant perfection, that love meant performance, that worth meant usefulness. And slowly, painfully, they begin to talk back, not with aggression, not with defiance, but with something softer, something that sounds almost like a parent comforting a frightened child. I know you're scared. I know you think you have to be perfect to be safe, but you don't, not anymore. This feels ridiculous at first, like play acting, like self-help nonsense, but they keep doing it, and over time, something shifts. The voice doesn't disappear, but it gets quieter, and in the space it leaves behind, there is room for something else. Something that doesn't demand, something that just is. This is not in a clinical sense, but in a deeply human one. It is the practice of giving themselves what they needed long ago and never received, unconditional presence, the message that they are allowed to exist without performing, that they are allowed to make mistakes without being discarded, that they are allowed to need things without being a burden. And it is slow, so slow because the nervous system does not change overnight. The brain does not unlearn a lifetime of conditioning just because they've read the right book or understood the right concept. Healing happens in layers, in moments, in tiny, almost imperceptible shifts. They practice sitting with discomfort without immediately trying to fix it. They practice letting someone love them without questioning their motives. They practice resting without guilt, even if the guilt still comes. They practice saying I don't know without feeling like a failure. They practice being imperfect, visibly, vulnerably, and not collapsing when the world doesn't reject them for it. And some days, it works. They feel lighter. They feel present. They catch themselves laughing without analyzing whether they deserve to. They receive a compliment and don't immediately deflect. They make a mistake and don't spiral into They exist, just for a moment, without the weight of proof. But other days, the old patterns come rushing back. The voice returns. The anxiety spikes. They achieve something and feel nothing. They are loved and doubt it. They rest and feel guilty. And in those moments they think, nothing has changed. I am still broken. I will always be this way. But that is not failure. That is the nature of healing. It is not linear. It is not clean. It is a spiral, not a ladder. They revisit the same wounds, again and again, but each time from a slightly different place. A place with a little more awareness, a little more compassion, a little more capacity to hold themselves without judgment. They learn to recognize their triggers, the situations that make them feel like they have to prove themselves all over again. The moments when the old belief I am not enough comes flooding back, and instead of fighting it, instead of hating themselves for still feeling this way, they practice something radical. They let it be there. They don't try to fix it. They don't try to positive think their way out of it. They just acknowledge it. Oh, there it is again. The fear, the doubt, the old story, and they sit with it the way you would sit with a frightened animal. Not forcing, not fixing, just being present. This is not about eliminating the wound. It is about changing their relationship to it, because the wound will always be part of them. The early years shaped them. The patterns were carved deep, and those patterns don't just disappear because they've done the work. But they can learn to see the patterns without being controlled by them. They can learn to feel the fear without obeying it. They can learn to hear the voice that says not enough and choose, just for today, not to believe it. They also begin to set boundaries. Soft ones at first, then firmer. They start to notice the relationships that drain them, the people who only show up when they're useful, the environments that require constant performance, and slowly, they begin to step back, not with anger, not with resentment, but with clarity. This does not serve me anymore, and it is terrifying, because their worth has always been tied to being needed, to being indispensable, to being the one who never says no. But they are learning, slowly, that being needed is not the same as being loved, and that real connection does not require them to disappear. They practice asking for what they need, not demanding, not apologizing, just stating it plainly. I need space. I need support. I need you to hear me. And sometimes, people show up, and sometimes, they don't. And both are information. They learn that they cannot heal in isolation. That part of the work is allowing themselves to be seen, really seen by people who will not use their vulnerability against them. And that is perhaps the hardest part, because being seen means being known, and being known means risking the very rejection they have spent their life trying to avoid. But they do it anyway, because the alternative, hiding, performing, staying safe, has become more painful than the risk. And in those moments of true connection, something happens, something that no achievement ever gave them. They feel held, not because they've earned it, but because they exist. And that feeling, fleeting as it is, begins to rewire the old belief. Not all at once, not permanently, but enough to keep going, enough to try again tomorrow, enough to believe, just a little bit more each day, that maybe, just maybe, they are enough as they are. Healing is not a destination, it is a return to the self they were before the world taught them they needed to be more. And it is the hardest, most courageous thing they will ever do, but they are doing it, one small, imperfect moment at a time. And then, one day, something shifts. Not dramatically, not permanently, but enough. They are standing in line at a coffee shop, or folding laundry, or sitting in traffic, and they realize they haven't thought about proving themselves in hours, maybe even days. The voice is still there, somewhere in the background, but it isn't directing them anymore. It isn't the narrator of their life. It's just a voice, one among many. And in that moment, they feel something they have not felt in a very long time. Peace, not happiness, not triumph, not relief that they've finally fixed themselves. Just a quiet, ordinary peace, the kind that comes from no longer being at war with your own existence. They don't feel enough in the way they imagined they would. There is no finish line, no moment where a switch flips and suddenly everything makes sense. But there is this. They are no longer waiting for permission to exist. They are no longer holding their breath, waiting to be found out, waiting for the other shoe to drop. That they are just here. And here is enough. That this is what they were searching for all along, though they didn't know it. Not the achievement, not the validation, not the proof, just the ability to be present in their own life without the constant measuring, the constant fear, the constant sense that they are failing some invisible test. They still have hard days. Days when the old patterns return with a vengeance. Days when they achieve something and feel nothing. Days when they are loved and still doubt it. Days when the voice screams so loudly that they forget everything they've learned. But now, they know those days will pass. They know the voice is not the truth. They know the feeling is not permanent. And that knowledge, that tiny bit of perspective, changes everything. Because they are no longer consumed by it. They are no longer defined by it. They can feel it, acknowledge it, and still choose to move through their day with gentleness, with patience, with the understanding that healing is not about never struggling again. It's about no longer being destroyed by the struggle. They have learned to hold themselves, not perfectly, not always, but enough. They have learned that rest is not laziness, that boundaries are not cruelty, that needing support is not weakness, that making mistakes does not erase their worth, that being imperfect does not make them unlovable. They have learned that enough was never a destination. It was always here, beneath the striving, beneath the fear, beneath the endless doing. It was always here, waiting to be recognized. And now, when someone tells them they are proud of them, they don't immediately search for the conditions. They don't analyze it. They don't deflect. They just say thank you, and they mean it. When they accomplish something, they let themselves feel it, not as proof, not as relief, just as a moment that doesn't need to carry the weight of their entire identity. When they make a mistake, they don't spiral. They don't take it as evidence of their unworthiness. They just learn from it, adjust, move forward, the way anyone would. When they rest, they don't feel guilty, or if they do, they don't let the guilt stop them. They rest anyway, because they are learning, slowly, that their worth is not measured in output, that their existence is not contingent on productivity, that they are allowed to simply be, and the people who love them notice. Not because they've changed into someone else, but because they've finally started to inhabit themselves. They are no longer performing, no longer hiding, no longer bracing, they are just present. And presence, it turns out, is what connection has always needed. They still don't have all the answers. They still don't know if they'll ever fully believe they are enough. Maybe the doubts will always be there, in some form. Maybe the wound will always ache on certain days. Maybe they will spend the rest of their life practicing, returning, relearning the same lesson in different forms, but that's okay. Because healing is not about arrival. It is about the willingness to keep showing up, to keep choosing compassion over criticism, to keep choosing presence over performance, to keep choosing themselves, even when it feels impossible. And in that choosing, something profound happens. They stop waiting for the world to tell them they are enough. They stop searching for the achievement that will finally make them feel whole. They stop running from the void, because they realize the void was never the enemy. It was just the space where love was supposed to be, and they are finally learning to fill it themselves. Not with accomplishments, not with validation, but with presence, with tenderness, with the quiet, revolutionary act of being kind to themselves, even when they don't feel like they deserve it. This is the quiet arrival, not the end of the journey, but the beginning of living as if they already belong, as if they already matter, as if they were always enough. And maybe, just maybe, they were. They look back now, at the person they were, the one who stood at finish lines and felt nothing, the one who was loved and couldn't believe it, the one who ran and ran and ran, always one step ahead of the fear that they were not enough, and they feel something unexpected, compassion for that person, for the child who learned that love was conditional, for the adolescent who thought perfection was safety, for the adult who achieved and achieved and achieved, hoping it would finally silence the voice. They see now that they were not broken. They were surviving. They were doing the best they could with what they knew, and what they knew was pain, disguised as ambition, fear, disguised as drive. But they are learning a different way now, a softer way, a way that does not require them to be anything other than what they are. And what they are is this: human, imperfect, worthy, not because of what they do, but because of what they are, and that finally, quietly, impossibly is enough.